A master set is when you collect every card from a set, start to finish, including secret rares. A grandmaster set is when you also collect all of the related promos and variations. A species set is when you collect every card of a specific Pokémon. Whether you're new to Pokémon card collecting or if you've been around for a few years, you'll probably learn something new in this video. Here are 64 Pokémon card terms explained as simply and as quickly as possible. Let's start with the general collecting terms that you definitely need to know. An alt art refers to cards that have an alternate copy in a set. Back in the Sun and Moon series, some cards actually did have an alt art symbol on them, but most of the time this term is used to unofficially describe the Sword and Shield ultra rares before the new rarity system was introduced. A full art is technically any card with art that stretches border to border, but the community has adopted it to the ultra modern rares. A binder card refers to a card that isn't in nice enough condition to grade, but will display nicely in a binder. For example, cards that have visible damage on the back, but the front looks near mint. What does raw mean? When a card is ungraded, it is referred to as raw. Conversely, a card that has been authenticated and sealed in a case is called graded, and the case is often called a slab. Some people may refer to a graded card as a slabbed card. However, this process is not permanent. A slab can be cracked open and the card inside retrieved. POP is short for population. Grading companies keep records of how many copies of a card they've graded and which grades they were assigned. This is called the population report. When someone says that a card is POP 1, that means only one copy has ever been assigned that specific grade by that specific company. If you're opening a booster pack, the cards you get are referred to as pulls. For example, I pulled this Charizard from a pack. Any card that is a double rare or above is considered a hit. So yes, this Charizard is a hit. But each expansion set will also have one or more chase cards. These are extremely rare cards that are difficult to pull from a pack. This Charizard is a chase card. Collectors will often spend lots of money chasing the card until they finally pull one or give in and buy it as a single. A single is an individual card. If you go to the store and buy a card, this is called buying a single, as opposed to buying booster packs or other products. If you open a bunch of booster packs and take out all the hits, the rest of the cards you've left behind are called bulk. These add up quickly and are pretty much worthless on the secondary market. It might take thousands of bulk cards to match the price of a hit. In Pokemon cards, an era refers to a certain time frame. In most cases, collectors are referring to the series name, such as Scarlet and Violet. Yes, the official term is series, but you can say era instead. Some Pokemon cards can display a larger image when side by side. This is called connecting artwork. It's very common today, and some older cards even utilize it a little more literally. If instead the artwork tells a story rather than forming a bigger picture, it's called a narrative artwork. Opening a booster pack or other product is called ripping. You might rip a booster pack. Some people use the term pack fresh to imply that a card is mint, but this isn't always the case. It's a bit of a buzzword. It's possible for cards to come straight out of the pack and have whitening or factory defects, for example. If someone tells you that they packed a card, this means they pulled it from a pack themselves, as opposed to purchasing the single. A waifu card refers to a female trainer card. Some people collect Pokemon, some people collect sealed products, and some people collect waifu cards. Holo is short for holofoil, or some people say holographic. Holo cards look like this, or this. A reverse holo is an alternate version of a holo. Most of the time they look like this. Now the official term for reverse holo is actually called a parallel. Now we don't use this term often, but I find it useful to help grasp this concept. Back in the early EX era, in the 2000s, the parallel cards looked like this, or this. And you can see that calling these a reverse holo can be misleading or confusing, but we do it anyway. God packs were first introduced in the Japanese Pokemon TCG and only recently came to the international side. This is when you open a booster pack and every single card is a hit, no bulk. This is extremely rare. Since Pokemon cards have been around for 3 decades, older cards are called vintage and newer cards are called modern. That awkward stage in the middle is often called mid-era. There is no hard line, this is a subjective term. These are terms that are related to the market. You'll hear words like comp and claim sale when buying or selling. Remember these terms so you don't get hustled. A claim sale is when a seller has a large selection of cards for sale, often spread throughout multiple photos, and they're asking people to leave a comment or a message claiming a card they would like to purchase. A rip and ship usually takes place during a live stream where a booster pack is purchased by a viewer, opened, and then shipped to that viewer. These streamers are called rip and shippers. A break is kind of the same thing, but this refers to an entire booster box or similar product being opened. Sometimes the streamer will have the viewers pre-purchase packs and then only break that box open or rip it when the packs have been purchased. The floor refers to a bottom price or offer, and inversely, the ceiling refers to the highest price. When you hear someone say last sold or last solds, they're often referring to the recent sales on eBay. These sales represent the current market on that day, week, or even month. The beautiful thing about eBay is that people can list cards at whatever price they want. So it's important to check last solds, because these represent the prices that are actually being paid. Most of the time. Shill bidding is the practice of faking bids on eBay or other auction platforms. Unfortunately, this is more common than one would expect. Since people often comp last solds on eBay, it can benefit a seller to fake a sale. Maybe you've heard someone say that they're checking comps. This means they're checking comparable sales, often eBay's last solds, so a fair price can be agreed upon. Sometimes you may ask for a price on a card and the seller may ask you to wait a moment while they check comps on it. Now we're moving into card condition. This is perhaps the most important part of the video because this stuff can get complicated if you don't have the right teacher. OC stands for off-center. Pokemon cards have a border and sometimes they aren't cut perfectly at the factory. If one side of the border starts to look extra thick, the opposite side will be extra thin. This is off-center. A card like this might be referred to as top-heavy. But that's not a miscut. Actually, it's pretty normal to find an off-center card, but miscuts look like this, and they're not nearly as common. Unlike vintage and modern, there is a hard line that collectors use. This is an alignment dot. As consumers, we're not supposed to see them, but they're for the factory workers. If the alignment dot is visible on the card, then it's a miscut. If not, it's just off-center. It's a pretty good rule of thumb anyway. On some cards, even fresh out of the pack, you'll notice a thin line. This is called a print line, and it's considered a factory defect. Sometimes they can be seen in the foil, and this can be classified as a foil line, since it's technically a different thing, but everyone just calls them print lines. So the above terms could be classified as errors. It's kind of a loose term thrown around in the hobby, but let's just say an error is any kind of defect on a card. This could include issues with the ink, or the foil, or even design errors like drowsy being misspelled. But we'll continue to break down a few. Pokemon cards are printed in layers. We have cardstock, foil, white ink, then black, cyan, magenta, and yellow ink. The white ink is opaque and hides the holo pattern. The other colors are translucent. But sometimes the holo foil will shine through where it isn't supposed to, and this is called holo bleed. This is an error, but it's fairly common, and error collectors will get annoyed if you call it one. Okay, this is probably the most desirable error for many collectors, and it's pretty simple. That white ink layer is misaligned and gives the illusion that the holo has shifted on the X or Y axis, or sometimes both. This one is easy. Some cards get crimped at the top or bottom. Booster packs and the clear plastic packs where you get promos get sealed by a crimping mechanism, and sometimes an unlucky card will get in the way and the end will get crimped. However, it's considered lucky if you find one of these. When you're looking to buy or sell a card, the condition is the most important factor. We use a scale with acronyms to make it easy for everyone. NM stands for near mint. The card should be free of pretty much any defects or damage. It should be packed fresh. LP stands for lightly played. This is when you'll see some light scratches or whitening, but it's not too bad. MP is moderately played. This is when things start to look worse. And HP is heavily played. This was used on the playground. And finally, DMG is damaged. Now, damaged is a little tricky. This is damaged, but so is this. A card can be in such poor condition that it falls into the damaged category, or a card can actually be really nice, but a small crease or dent will automatically put it into the damaged category as well. I'll link a couple of resources in the description because my examples aren't thorough enough to paint the full picture. Whitening refers to edge wear on the back of a card. It's easiest to see on a black background. When the ink is frayed from wear and tear, or sometimes from the factory, the white cardstock underneath will show through. Silvering is the same thing, but on the front of the card, and only on hollow cards. The ink is lifted or worn away on the edge, however it happens, and the hollow foil layer underneath will begin to show. Sometimes it's hard to see, but some silver sparkles will show through. This is pretty common on vintage cards. To tie this all together, a subgrade is one of 4 categories companies use to assign an overall grade: centering, edges, corners, and surface. Some companies display these on their grading label, others do not. If a normie sits down and spectates a match of the Pokémon trading card game, it'll probably feel like the players are speaking another language with words like donk, mill, and mulligan. Let's break down some of the slang that players use. The meta is the strategy that most players are using or actively building decks to combat. The meta typically dominates tournaments. Basically, it's what's working best right now in the TCG. Donked, as funny as it is, means that you've lost before even getting to play your turn. Or perhaps you've donked someone. Dead drawing, or drawing dead, means that you'll have no moves to make when it's your turn. You just draw a card, and you pass your turn. This is also called bricked, or being bricked. A hand disruption is any method you can use to force your opponent to shuffle their hand back into their deck, disrupting their hand. A tech card is a situational card, something you would likely have one copy of to counter specific strategies your opponent may utilize. Sometimes your opening hand doesn't have any basic Pokemon, so you can't start the game. In this scenario, you may mulligan, which means you can shuffle your cards back into your deck and draw your opening hand again. Often, when people refer to baby Pokemon, they mean any card that isn't an EX, GX, VMAX, etc. People call these baby shinies, even though they aren't baby Pokemon, and this confused me for a long time. A mirror or mirror match is when you play a game against someone using the same deck as yours. To mill someone means you are draining their deck until they can draw no more cards. A milling deck will contain cards that force your opponent to draw or discard cards from their deck until they're all out. Energy acceleration refers to any means of getting more energy than your usual one attach per turn. A pre-release event is an event held 1 to 2 weeks before the official release of a new set and offers players an opportunity to get some cards early and try out new deck builds and strategies. A lot of these words were invented decades ago, but are still relevant today. And new collectors need to know this stuff if they want to build a solid foundation in Pokemon card collecting. Some cards from the original English 1999 base set are shadowless. Here is a shadowless copy on the left, and what we call an unlimited copy on the right. Look right here, you'll see the difference. I have a full video on this if you want a deeper explanation. Unlimited is the opposite of first edition. The idea behind this is that the first edition stamp was very limited and only available for a short window. Then after that, limited cards were produced. Outside of a few exceptions, the only difference is the stamp. E-Series describes 3 sets: Expedition, Aquapolis, and Skyridge. These all have the dot code on the side and bottom that can be scanned with an e-reader. Some cards from the EX series do actually have the dot code, but this isn't what people are talking about when they say E-Series. A nostalgia tax is kind of a meme, but also true. Cards that trigger certain nostalgic points in someone can often cost more. There is also a so-called Pikachu tax or Charizard tax, and a tax for any super popular Pokemon. They know we have to have it, so they can charge extra. Back in the day, booster packs had different lengths of crimps, so when people talk about long or short crimp, this length is what they're referring to. Collectors prefer one or another for various reasons. Old booster packs can be weighed on a scale to determine whether or not they contain a holo card inside. A heavy pack likely contains a holo, and a light pack likely contains only non-holos. I lied earlier about these being vintage only terms because this actually still applies to modern Japanese booster packs. If you browse eBay or other marketplaces, you might find vintage packs that say unweighed. This is the seller trying to convince you that they have not weighed the pack. They have weighed the pack, and it's light. A no rarity card only applies to the first ever cards produced in Japan. The early Japanese base set was missing rarity symbols. This is not officially the Japanese version of first edition, but many collectors have nicknamed it exactly that. Okay, let's tie up this video with some common acronyms. WOTC, often pronounced WOTC. This stands for Wizards of the Coast and is used to describe international Pokemon cards produced before 2003, when Wizards, the company, was involved. NFC stands for non-factory cut, which describes Pokemon cards that have been cut from their sheet outside of the factory by a third party. ETB stands for Elite Trainer Box, which is a popular Pokemon TCG product, but no one wants to say that mouthful all the time. PC stands for Personal Collection. These are cards that you don't plan to sell. BDIF stands for Best Deck in Format. It's used to describe the most dominant deck in the current game. LGS stands for Local Game Shop, or you may have heard LCS, which stands for Local Card Shop. If I missed any, please leave a comment below to help others, because this isn't just a hobby, it's a community.